Get started here just for the sake of time. Welcome everyone to the first webinar in our Tiger Talk summer webinar series for our Clemson parents and families. My name is Casey Ford, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Student Transitions in the Center for Student Leadership and Engagement, which is a long way of saying that I am here in support of your experience and your transition into Clemson University. So our hope is that throughout the summer, these webinars will offer a chance for you all to get some good insight into what your student's transition looks like, some of the process that go along with that, and the ways that you can be helpful and the ways that you can be supportive in those too. So as you can see, tonight is about our orientation and advising overview. So essentially what your student is about to experience this summer before they officially join us in the fall. And so that is going to be the focus of our time tonight. So we will do some extended welcomes and introductions here in just a couple of minutes. And then we will have our lovely panelists take it away from there and deliver tonight's content. We will save some time at the end for questions and answers, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and then we will wrap us up. So just some housekeeping things. This is a Zoom webinar, as I'm sure we are all too familiar with at this point, very similar to, of course, a regular Zoom meeting, but has a little bit of some different features. So audio and video for our participants, our folks joining us, has been muted just to kind of keep things clear. And then this webinar is being recorded. So if there are things that pop up that you want to remember later or come back to, I'll have that posted in a couple of days on the Clemson Parent and Family Experience portal. I'll give that reminder at the end as well and send that link just to make sure you were all registered and kind of know where to look for that, but wanted to make sure that you had that knowledge. We do have a question and answer feature. So if you look at your toolbar right now, you'll see a few different buttons, including the chat, but there's also a question and answer button. So would love for you, as we are going throughout the content tonight, to use that feature to submit any questions. We, the panelists and hosts on our end, will go through those and answer them, whether that be live throughout the webinar tonight, through the chat, or at the end. Any questions that we, for some reason, don't get to, or maybe need to look elsewhere for further context, we will make sure and answer offline. So we will make sure that if your question falls into that category, I will be sure to reach out to you in the next few days to make sure that you've got that question answered. All right, that wraps up our housekeeping portion of tonight's webinar. So at this point, I will hand it over to our presenters to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Sperlin. I'm the Director of Student Transitions. I'm part of the Center for Student Leadership and Engagement. My role covers all things new student orientation, our parent and family programs, Welcome Week. If you've received any kind of email about orientation, it probably had my name at the bottom of it. So I apologize for that, but really excited to be with you tonight.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla Greitner. I am the Assistant Director of the Academic Advising Center for the College of Behavioral, Social, and Health Sciences. I am also the Academic Advisor for Communication and Sports Communication students.
And hey, everybody, I am Katie Black. I work in the College of Agriculture, Forestry, and Life Sciences, specifically working with advising and marketing for our 12 academic programs. I specifically advise our students in the college who are undeclared and in transition, potentially changing majors. So excited to have everybody here tonight.
All right, so we're going to dive right in. My purpose tonight, and I'm not going to take a super long time because Katie and Kayla are certainly the experts on the call tonight, but I wanted to give an overview of what your students should be doing or seeing with new student orientation. What's the process of transitioning them into the university? And it is made up of 6 main components. The first thing is that a student needs to sign up for orientation. That's the very first step. And they do that through their admitted student portal, which we'll show you in just a second. Hopefully this is familiar to you and your student, that you all are on this path. Once a student signs up, they gain access to our virtual orientation platform. There are certain modules that they go through, and once they complete them, it leads them to an academic advising appointment. Katie and Kayla will go into a lot more detail about advising, what to expect and what that means. but it's a one-on-one meeting on Zoom with an advisor to prepare for course registration. So your student will choose a date and a time to sign up for classes for fall. We're really trying to get them there so they can sign up for classes and be ready for August. We do have an optional in-person experience called Ready, Set, Roar that I'll talk about in just a second. And then finally, Welcome Week is a final component of transitioning into the university. Welcome Week is the week leading up until classes start in August, where students take part in traditions and activities, events, things that we do to help them get connected. Casey, if you'll go to the next slide, these four things at the top here are the mandatory pieces of new student orientation. They have to sign up and let us know that they are going through orientation. We want them to get through the virtual orientation to prepare them for that advising appointment, which leads them to course registration. Okay, next slide. This is the admitted student portal. Your students should know what this is. It's where they have been working already. Once a student pays their deposit, the orientation tab opens up and it will have a checklist and a complete kind of step-by-step guide of everything that they need to do during orientation. We've really tried to make it pretty easy on them. If they can get to the admitted student portal, it will guide them on exactly what they need to do. Okay. Casey, next. Yeah, so virtual orientation is a beautiful platform that we've created. As you can see at the bottom, it's composed of 7 main topics, modules. We want a student to at least get through the academics module, so that second module. As soon as they finish that, and there's a completion date associated with academics, that's what Kayla and Katie and our other advisors will see that, okay, so Glenn has finished virtual orientation, at least the academics component. He's ready to be advised. So they will reach out and set up an advising appointment. Next slide, Casey. Academic advising, as I mentioned, is a one-on-one Zoom meeting sometime this summer to prepare for course registration and to talk through questions that you have. Again, they're going to go into a lot more detail, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time there. But next up is course registration. As soon as you meet with an advisor, they click a button and it allows students in their admitted student portal to sign up for a course registration date and time. It's either the week of June 19th or July 17th, and I'll show you that in just a second. But course registration is literally where they will sign up for classes for fall. They will have a schedule and they'll know what they're going to take. They know what time their classes are and who they're going to have. So it's a really exciting time for them. Everything that we do from the sign up through academic advising helps to prepare them for this course registration time. Don't worry, advisors, our staff, even some student staff will be on hand on course registration days to help, to literally be live online to be able to answer any questions that they may have. So those are the mandatory pieces. Casey, if you'll go to the next slide, our first optional piece is called Ready, Set, Roar. If you haven't heard about this, this is a 2-day experience that we have as an option for families and students to come on campus. And this is much more of your traditional orientation experience where we have you come to campus, you hear from experts, you get connected with other families, students get connected with students, they're familiar with campus, and they hear about their academic program. The goal is that they get connected and that they are ready to jump in whenever they get here in August. That's the point of Ready, Set, Roar. Now, a couple of things about Ready, Set, Roar. It's super fun. I'm going to show you, actually, we did a survey with everyone who participated last summer. I'll show you what they thought of Ready, Set, Roar and if they thought it was worth their time. But we are limited in space for Ready, Set, Roar. So I would encourage you to sign you and your students up as soon as possible. For example, if you are part of the Engineering, Computing, and Applied Sciences College, unfortunately, those sessions are already full, 100% full. And so there's a lot of excitement around it. I definitely encourage you to sign up when there are still spaces available for all the other colleges currently. If you'll go to the next slide, a few of the components of Ready, Set, Roar, as I mentioned, is connecting with the academic program. Orientation ambassadors are a group of upperclassmen who we've hired and trained and spent about 6 months with. Actually, we just came from their training about 10 minutes ago. They are there to lead your students and to get them connected to campus and connected with each other. We also have a lot of fun. There are evening socials. Parents and families, you all will be in the football stadium in the west end zone in a really nice suite. We'll have drinks and food ready for you. Students have their own social to get connected with each other. And it's a chance to get any and every question answered that you could possibly have about Clemson. To give you an idea of what that looks like, what the summer schedule looks like for Ready, Set, Roar and course registration. Next slide, Casey. This is a breakdown. These orange blocks are the Ready, Set, Roar sessions. They are split up by academic college. So if you're in Kayla's college with behavioral, social, and health sciences, you will go on June 28th and 29th. And each college has one option in June and one in July. Now, those registration weeks that I talked about, we pause all activity to focus on students registering for classes. So that's June 19th, and then Casey, go to the next slide, and July 17th. Those 2 weeks are huge, and it's kind of an all hands on deck week for our staff to be ready for students. And then you can see that there are other Ready, Set, Roar options. So either a session for Ready, Set, Roar fills up, or we close it about 2 weeks out so we can order name tags and supplies and catering and make sure the housing is all set up and ready to go. If you have questions about Ready, Set, Roar, about the admitted student portal, about connecting with an advisor, whatever it may be, reach out to us at orientation@clemson.edu. I think I've got a couple more slides. I wanted to focus for a second on our orientation ambassadors. Again, this is a group of students that we hire and train who are connected on campus, who you will be interacting with throughout the summer, either at Ready, Set, Roar or potentially your course registration weeks. And you will also see them at Welcome Week whenever you get here in August. They're phenomenal. And if you have a chance to connect, please connect with them. I promised I'd show you that survey data. You can see here that whenever we asked them if it was worth their time, if they made connections while they were here at Ready, Set, Roar, if they felt like they belonged as a result of Ready, Set, Roar, were the OAs engaging, knowledgeable? Did they help you feel welcome? And do you feel prepared to invest in your experience? Very, very great feedback. Almost everyone who came said it was absolutely worth their time and super impactful. And then finally, Welcome Week, my final slide here. Welcome Week 2023, we've got some great stuff planned. These are just some of the big highlights. Highly encourage students to pay attention and watch. We will connect them with a Welcome Week leader. Again, we have almost 200 upper class students who have volunteered to be Welcome Week leaders to connect with your students who are coming into Clemson. That's phenomenal. And they will guide them through the entire week, take them to these activities and get them connected and answer any questions that they have. So we are really excited to welcome your students through this process, to potentially, hopefully see you at Ready, Set, Roar. Definitely see them at Welcome Week. Again, if you have any questions, orientation@clemson.edu. Okay, with that, if you have questions for me, throw them in the Q&A option and I will do my best to answer them. But I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Kayla for the next portion.
Thanks, Glenn. You got a lot of work in the question and answer there to answer some questions about Ready, Set, Roar. I was ignoring them while you were talking. So I want you guys to go on a little adventure with me and remember when the first time your student got in a car and drove away without you in the car. So you're no longer there sitting beside them. They are at the wheel and you're at home. And think about how that felt and that experience. And maybe you were really excited. Maybe they were the older sibling and you knew they could finally drive those younger ones around. Maybe they were your youngest and you were happy to be done with that chapter of your life. Maybe it really made you nervous. Maybe it was a scary experience for you, nervous about the traffic out there on the roads. Does your student have all the things that they needed to be equipped? And I think this is a great analogy for what the advising experience and the experience going off to college can feel like for all of us, for us on campus, for your student, and for yourselves. And then again, maybe remember what it felt like for your student to drive away for their first time, that independence that they maybe felt, the excitement that they felt, as well as probably a lot of nerves. And maybe even think back to long ago when each one of you got your driver's license and drove away for the first time. I remember the independence I felt with that. I'd had an older sister driving me around forever and I just couldn't wait. And I think this is a great analogy for that advising experience. You're not going to be there in the passenger seat. You can't press that imaginary brake. You may be at home watching Life 360 and live viewing where they're going, but you don't have that input to help them along the journey. So it's really about the prep they've gotten before they set off on that journey, and about maybe those touch points that you can make with them while they're on that journey. You can head to the next slide, Casey.
So again, like Katie was saying, college is not that different. So students must follow like a certain roadmap, instructions, rules, and regulations. Now, of course, depending on the major, what you want to get involved in, it may be a different type of roadmap or different set of instructions, but it is important that the student begins to learn to make decisions for themselves with the information that us as advisors provide them. So that is the important thing. The one thing I always tell students is to help me help you. And so that is basically putting their their journey in their hands, while instead of the parent being in the passenger seat, now that advisor may be in the passenger seat trying to help them along the way. Go to the next slide, Casey.
So this is always very confusing when you're trying to navigate Clemson. You would think that things look really cookie cutter and the experience for every student is the same, and that's not actually the case. There are 7, soon to be 8 academic colleges here on campus that cover our 80-ish majors. And every college, every department, and sometimes even within the major, the advising experience and structure can look very different. Just between Kayla's college and my own, it is a very different experience for students. Kayla's college uses a much more centralized advising center. Our college uses advisors within every single major. I reside in our advising center as the only advisor. We also do services like career services and things like that. It's really important for students to begin that relationship with the advisor that they're working with in orientation, but also know that may not be who they are ultimately assigned to as an advisor coming in as a freshman. Once they've been advised and get ready for fall, they'll actually be assigned their advisor. They can view that in IROR. We'll talk more about all these terms and what these different jargons mean. And it's important to know too that we cannot be a one-stop shop. I get all sorts of questions. I'm seeing questions coming in about housing. I don't know anything about housing. I am very much about the academic regulations, the courses that you take within a major, the way that general education works. And it's important that referrals are made and that students utilize those referrals. I have access to so many systems at Clemson and can see a lot about your student. The one area I see nothing about is money. Thank goodness, I want nothing to do with the money. So when students talk to me about scholarships and in-state, not a state, and all these different things, there's very little that I talk about on the money side of the house. I'm always going to refer a student over to financial aid to talk about those things. We have an amazing career center on campus. And while obviously with my majors, I know a little bit about the careers with those, I'm always going to refer a student over to a career counselor to talk more about their interests too. And like Kayla said, it is always my goal to help a student help themselves. That's not to say that I don't want to do my job, right? Like I can grab the roadmap and I could totally jump in that driver's seat and drive for them. That's not helping them at all. There's a lot of choice to be made. Maybe not as much in this first semester freshman year, but especially as we go forward, lots of our majors have choice, and especially when it comes to general education. And a lot of times students will ask me, well, which one should I take? And I don't know you. You know, when I took my arts and humanities course, I took a theater course because that's something that really interested me. And my roommate would have died if they would have had to have taken a theater course and do anything in that frame. So it is, we're going to give a lot of information and instructions, and students really have to grab that map and determine their route all the way down the road. Go ahead, Casey.
So I know this will be sent to you all later in a recording, but if you are able to take a lovely picture of the slide, I would definitely appreciate it. Katie would definitely appreciate it. I think a lot of times there is some confusion, so to speak, between student responsibilities and advisor responsibilities. An academic advisor is very different from your high school counselor. So that is definitely one note I want to make. I won't go over everything, but there are a few things that I definitely want to make a note of. So it is the student's responsibility to reach out to their academic advisor. Again, every academic advising center is structured very differently. So there are some advisors who may reach out to all of their students in the beginning of the semester. Hi, my name is Kayla. I'm your advisor for X, Y, and Z. There are some who do not. So it is important to make connections with your academic advisor early, and not just when you are in fear of failing a class or when you need to withdraw. Like, that shouldn't be the first time that I hear from students. So please definitely make note of that. Another big one, be an active participant in your education and experience. Like Katie was saying earlier, I cannot be the person that makes the decisions for you. I think with, I'm sounding like my grandmother, with this generation, a lot of students are afraid to mess up. And so instead of taking that leap and possibly making a mistake, they want me to answer and to do things for them. And that does not help them in the end. There are very, very few mistakes where it's like it's going to be the end of the world. I will ask you clarifying questions, or I will ask you, well, what do you think? 9 times out of 10, I will not make that decision for you, because I might make a decision and then it's like, well, Kayla said, and it's like, no, this is on the student. And for example, like Katie was saying with theater, I majored in Spanish, so clearly I love modern languages. Most of my students do not, even though they are required to do so. So I cannot necessarily help you choose which language you want to take. That is up to you and what you have an interest in. So definitely keep that in mind. Please become familiar with your major requirements, and monitor your degree towards, monitor your progress, towards degree completion. That is super important. I will do that as an advisor, but you also need to do that as a student. DegreeWorks is going to be one of your best friends here. That will show you what is completed, what needs to be completed, especially if you are considering changing a major. All of that comes into play. So you have all of the resources, but it's up to you to use those. For me as an advisor, I will definitely help you with the appropriate courses that you need to take. As advisors, we will never tell you to take something that you don't need towards your degree. We do not do that. We will definitely help you facilitate like conversations about degree options, and just really how to have like healthy conversations, appropriate conversations with those in your office and then those outside. So a lot of students are afraid to speak to their professors, but I was not in class with you, so I'm not sure what exactly occurred. So it's important for you to speak with that professor, whether it's during office hours, after class, whatever the case may be. And if you are nervous about speaking, you're not quite sure what to say, then that's where I can help you and give you some tools. But again, I am not going to necessarily email the professor or talk with the professor, because there are two different sides. It is also, we will advocate on your behalf, like when it is appropriate, but please realize that is not every single time you have a problem. We will know when it's something that you can solve, even though it's out of your comfort zone, versus when it needs to be more on an advisor or a supervisor, associate dean type level. So again, just know the differences as far as responsibilities between student and advisor.
Sorry, I lost my mouse there. I couldn't get it back. We talk about a lot of tools and websites and jargon that are really Clemson specific. So I'm going to go through some of those real quick. And the things that, if a student is very familiar with these, makes the advising experience a lot smoother. So iRoar is the platform where students can access a lot of their academic information. Essentially everything they'll need is through iRoar. iRoar is where they will find DegreeWorks. If they are in the major that they intend to stay in, DegreeWorks is the audit that shows them every single course they need to take. And if they have a course that's going to satisfy that requirement already, what I love the most about DegreeWorks is every one of those courses they have to take is clickable. So it tells you then what the prerequisite is. Is the course offered this term? It'll list exactly when it's offered. DegreeWorks is very intuitive and works well. The only thing I'd say that I don't love about DegreeWorks is it isn't that kind of roadmap that lays out when we anticipate when you want to take those. Advisors usually will provide you with a kind of curriculum roadmap. You can also get those out of the catalog, FYI too. The student profile is the student's advising profile, tells us a lot about if they have a SAT math score already that we're going to use potentially for placement into a math course. It's going to be where all of that kind of information is. Later on, once they're a student, it'll tell them when their time ticket to register is. If they've already done their advising, I see some questions about that in the chat. If they forgot what their advising time is, it is there. That time ticket's assigned there. And this is also where they access their transcripts. I get students all the time say, hey, can you print my transcript for me? The unofficial transcript is in there. And again, any credit that they would be receiving so far, this would be the place to check and see if it's here already or not. If it's not, it's going to come from College Board, from their dual enrollment institution, wherever that credit's coming from. CU Navigate is the web-based platform, and it's an app for your phone as well, where students will interact with their advisor, as well as several other offices on campus too. It's kind of the appointment making location, and it's also where we put all of the reports. So when I'm done meeting with a student, I upload the report and they can always find it there. I email it to my student, but I always remind them of those reports are always in there too. So a lot of you are asking about how do we schedule that appointment? Your advisor creates what's called a campaign through CU Navigate and emails them a very specific link to register for their orientation advising appointment. Again, that only happens after they've completed their advising modules. Some of you may be panicking and saying, hey, we did those 2 weeks ago back when it opened and I still haven't heard from an advisor. I'm going to be honest, our college has some of the smallest majors, and I have advisors that are just getting started this week. So don't panic if you haven't heard. The big majors, College of Business, College of Engineering, they started back as soon as it became available because they got a lot of students to work through. So CU Navigate's great. Students definitely need to download the app. Academic catalog. Again, I'm going to feel like a dinosaur, but back when I was a student, they handed you an academic catalog when you started college. It was a big thick book. We tabbed it, highlighted in it. Those don't exist anymore. It's all digital. And I will say again, I feel like a dinosaur, that I do think students miss out that that's kind of their Bible, their roadmap, that document is very important. And that catalog year that they are in is important. Sometimes if you just Google Clemson and searching for something, you'll end up in an old catalog. Be sure you're working in the most recent catalog that you're assigned to. And that catalog is your rules and regulations, your curriculum, your specific general education. Almost everything is in the catalog. Clemson email, I don't think Kayla and I can sing this harmoniously enough. Students must check their Clemson email. They have to set up the g.clemson. However, big warning, faculty and staff on campus do not use the g.clemson. So when you're emailing within the university, it's at clemson.edu. That's how we reach out to students too. And then it just simply forwards to their g.clemson. So Clemson email is a very important tool. It is the only way that I communicate with students. I'm not going to email their Hotmail. It'll just be that. Canvas is where all of their courses live. So as they register for courses, it'll start populating all these courses in Canvas. Some faculty love Canvas and use it a ton. Some of our faculty, I've got the oldest serving faculty at the university is in my college. He does not use Canvas. I promise you, he barely checks his email. There's still some dinosaurs around that aren't using Canvas as much, but Canvas is officially where those classes are, where some coursework can be. And that's also then IROR is where official grades in progress are. Students often think, I can see their Canvas and they'll say, oh, I didn't do really well on that quiz. I'm sure you can see that. I don't. I'm only going to see when you have a final grade reported. And then I've seen a lot of questions about CU 1000. CU 1000, I always refer to as kind of orientation 2.0. This first round of orientation gets you to registration and starting Clemson. And then CU 1000 works you through the rest of the semester. There's a lot of great content in there. It is a 0 credit pass-fail course, pass-no-pass course that students will register for with their advisor, and everything that you have to schedule for that. I saw some things about the community dialogue. You will do that later within the course content. So very easy, but those are all like the Clemson specific jargons to work through. And I think Kayla is going to give us some tips and tricks.
Yes. So I saw a few things in Q&A regarding like AP IB dual enrollment, and that some students may not get their scores right away. So when we advise, we assume credit. So we always ask students about AP IB dual enrollment. Now we accept some Cambridge credit. So it is important for students to know. I always ask what scores they have and what scores they're waiting for. And again, we're going to assume credit. And if they didn't get the score they thought they were going to get, that's fine. We can work around that. But it is okay if they do not have those scores before the June date. So I did want to make that clear. Speaking of registration, there are a few, a lot of common errors that I did just want to touch on briefly. So as far as summer registration, you will be in kind of like what Glenn was talking about earlier, you will be in a room with others in your major. There are some people who combine with other advisors who advise other majors. So you will not be the only one in the Zoom room. I know some advisors don't even require to be in Zoom. For my college, specifically behavioral social and health sciences, we require all students to be in there. It is just easier to help you all troubleshoot when everyone is in one central location. One of the biggest things I think is to be patient. It could be 20 students in there to 3 advisors. We see you, we recognize the question. It just may take us a minute because there might have been 3 or 4 questions before yours. So definitely be patient. And definitely check Zoom, check literally anything that you're going to need, check your browser. That is whether it's summer orientation, fall, or spring, because I have realized that technology wants to mess up as soon as I need it. So when you are prepared like 10 to 15 minutes before instead of 2 minutes before, I've had a student who missed the majority of the registration and they were upset with me because I could not help them as much as I would have in the beginning because they only had 10 to 15 minutes before their time to get closed. So it is very important to make sure technology is good. A lot of students are Bachelor of Arts majors, meaning that they will more than likely have to take a language. So with your languages, you are more than likely, or you will be taking a lecture in a lab. So let's say Spanish 1020 and Spanish 1021, for example. 1020 is the lecture, 1021 is the lab. Those sections have to match. So if I'm taking section 2 of Spanish 1020, I also need section 2 of Spanish 1021. Advisors, if they need to, they will go over that in the Zoom room or send an email out or whatever the case may be. With sciences, you also need a lab. With a lot of the maths, you will need a lab. So if you get some errors, like it's red and it says this is the error, do not panic. Just let us know what error you're receiving. We have more than likely seen that multiple times. So just let us know and then we can help you out with that. If not, we will get someone that does know what that error is. So the biggest thing is just to be patient and to not panic. I'm trying to figure out the nice way to put this. We would greatly appreciate it if there were no outside guests during registration. That only delays us helping the student. So we don't need mom, dad. We don't need a current student who has done this before. We don't need any outside guests. In the past, I have had to kick students out of the Zoom room because it became a distraction. I don't want to do that, but I will to be sure that everyone else gets the experience that they deserve. So please, no outside guests. We will help you. Again, like Glenn was saying, we'll have student staff that will also help. They know this like the back of their hand as far as the registration errors. And even if we need to put people in a breakout room so it can be more one-on-one, we will do that as well. We will do everything that we need to help you. And the last thing about registration is the advanced search. So one of the things that I always see is a student will try to find a class and they'll say, everything's full. And it's like, no, everything on that page is full, but everything is not full. So advanced search is also going to be one of your besties. So what you'll do is you'll hit advanced search and you could do things such as open sections only. You could do like certain attributes. If you're just looking for classes that will count towards a non-literature requirement, you can do that. If you're looking for classes that count towards global challenges, for example, you can also do that. So that is what I would definitely use advanced search. That'll just make things so much easier. And I said that was going to be the last thing. One more thing about registration. I'm just going to be honest. I went to Clemson. I did not get my ideal schedule my first semester. And I'm 31 and I'm still here alive and well. So you will survive. If you get an 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I had Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, 8 to 3:30 back to back my first semester, and I was fine. I was tired, but I was okay, and I did well. So definitely do not be that student that's not trying to get Friday classes and all Tuesday, Thursday classes. Again, that's just going to prolong your registration, and you may not get all the classes that you need because you're trying to get all the classes that you want. So definitely be aware of that. VPN and Zoom download, please do this prior to registration. That is going to make things so much easier. I do not want you all to do it 5 or 10 minutes before it is time for you to register. I would literally do that at like latest a week before it's time for you to register. Email and appointment etiquette. Those who know me know that email etiquette is very big to me, and it is a huge pet peeve of mine when students treat emails as if they are a text message. I can't stand it. I am going to be honest, I may or may not respond to those at the end of the day because I have to woosah and because it's not appropriate. So please always have a greeting. Please ask your question and then some sort of salutation. Thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing from you soon, etc. And please do not forward the email that you previously sent, because again, that's going to take longer for me to reply. That's going to take longer for any advisor, any faculty, any staff to reply. And if you email me at 8:05, if you don't hear from me by 8:30, that's okay. That probably means I was in a meeting. I was doing something. I promise I will get to you. I always try to get to people within 48 hours. Some people need longer than that because they just have a very busy schedule. But I promise you, none of us on this campus are purposely ignoring you. We are going to get to you as soon as we can. And appointment etiquette, same thing. We need you to be engaged. We need you to be involved. Understand not all times students can have their camera on. We totally understand that. But we also don't want you in a car while you are in an appointment. That is telling me that you are not available at that time and you're going to need to reschedule. So just be mindful of that. Just think about how you would want someone to speak to you or to be engaged in a conversation that you are having. And that's more than likely what we would want in an appointment or via email. As I said earlier, DegreeWorks will be your best friend. It will show you your degree progress, what you need, what you don't need. If something does not make sense to you, reach out to your advisor and let them know that you don't understand something. I love a good screenshot. I call it a receipt. I love a good receipt. And you just let us know what's confusing and we will try our best. If not, we will direct you to the right person. And then more than likely, you will find everything that you need on Clemson.edu. It's like Clemson's Google. So you'll go on Clemson.edu. If you don't know how to find DegreeWorks, you literally can just put in DegreeWorks in the search engine and it will give you directions on how to find it. So again, these are you can use these whenever you want. It is up to you to be able to use the resources that are available to you.
A lot of times when a student asks me a question, I go on the website and look it up. There is really nothing that Kayla and I know. I mean, I may know it faster, but there's really no secrets. Everything that is there to be known is really out there on Clemson.edu. I know a lot of folks are in the Clemson Mom Facebook groups and asking questions there. Don't always trust that as the gospel. Go to Clemson.edu, fact check it, ask the advisor about it. I see a lot of mistakes out there on that page and I just remain silent and know that they're mistakes. This is just some helpful reminders. I see a lot of questions about registration. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that process again and what that looks like. So again, your student will finish their academic modules. They'll then hear from their advisor to schedule an advising appointment. That advising appointment is a 30-minute scheduled advising appointment for the student and the advisor to talk about what the student is going to register for fall. Again, I see a lot of questions about Summer Start. Summer Start courses are assigned by the Summer Start program. They do a great job based on the information your student has been given. I always talk with my students right now. They haven't been assigned yet. So I always say, hey, this is what I anticipate they're probably going to put you in. If it's anything different, or if it's a class you're telling me you already have credit for, reach back out. We can get that fixed. That's not a big deal if the placement's not correct. But we are only going to be registering and talking really about the fall semester. We're going to kind of deal with what's happening with summer, but we're going to talk mostly about fall. We're going to talk through the courses. My ideal student has looked at their curriculum, looked at the catalog, knows their AP, IB, dual enrollment, anticipated incoming coursework already, and is coming to the meeting telling me what they want to take freshman year. That I'm going to tell you that happens 0.01% of the time. Obviously, you don't know a lot about Clemson. I get that. I feel like freshman year, first semester, I'm driving a lot of that conversation and really pushing students towards that. And full honesty here, we want to know if you have other majors on the table. Obviously, you were admitted into Clemson in one major. There are 80 majors at Clemson, and there may be other things on your mind. Be open and honest about those things from the get-go, because if not, I will make a mistake in telling you what math to take, because I'm going to be focused on this one specific major that if I know another one's an option, I may be like, oh, let's do this class instead, because that'll count for both. This will be a better choice. So be open and honest about what majors are on the table, what you're thinking. Come to that meeting as prepped as possible, because then the questions will come a lot easier. A lot of times when I'm done going through what I would recommend for fall, any questions, the student just looks like deer in the headlights. They're totally overwhelmed, which I get. Again, follow up. If the student comes to you later and says, hey, this is what they've told me to take, you've got a list of questions, sit down, help them think through the questions, help them prep to have that conversation with their advisor again. We will be happy to reschedule a second Zoom, go over any questions that you have and get you ready. Once we've advised, we release you to then let the student pick their time ticket. There's 2 weeks, 1 week in June, 1 week in July, where the student needs to be available for about an hour. Again, distraction-free environment, good Wi-Fi on a laptop. Please, no phones. It does not work. It happens every year. Be on a laptop where you can truly access the system through the VPN client. It's a lot of work these days. And when it comes to registration, right now, when students are building their plan ahead, they're panicked. Oh my gosh, there's no seats. Our current students are still in the system until June 12th. The seats are hiding behind a wall right now. Come registration time, throughout those 2 weeks, there's no benefit in coming on June on the first day at the first time. Every session, every time ticket, we're releasing seats accordingly so that every student across every time ticket, every day of registration has an equal opportunity to get a class. I saw a mom say, I remember back in my day, it was really hard to get a seat. I totally remember that. We used to stand in lines. That doesn't exist anymore. We do our best through registration to place students appropriately. If it's a must, if it's something that, we have a little bit of flexibility. Kayla and I and other advisors are in a chat group where we are able to, if it's appropriate, get a student put into a course if it's appropriate. It's not always appropriate. There's another class that meets that requirement. It's, might not be your ideal at 8 a.m. That's not a reason. But especially if I know you're bringing in dual enrollment, but it just hasn't gotten here yet, I can go and be sure that we get past that and don't have to deal with that. Registration closes down after your time ticket closes. You get, what is it, Glenn? 2 hours of a time ticket being open?
Yeah, depending on what time of the day they start. But yeah, it closes at around lunchtime and then about 4:30 in the afternoon.
Again at 4:30, yeah. So you get a little bit of time to be in there, but really once we've gotten it done, we're going to hang up with you. Don't mess with it too much. I have students that, whoops, I dropped the whole thing. At that point, it's a lot harder to get things back. But once that time ticket closes, a lot of folks feel like, well, that's it. I got a terrible schedule and it's over. That's not true. Once orientation is over, the whole system opens back up. And I promise you, the upperclassmen are just waiting for that to open back up because then the seats are really out there. So it's kind of apple cart turnover again between then and classes starting and even that first week of classes. So if you don't get that dream professor, that dream class right away, there's still time to work through and potentially still get it. The way that the system works now, and especially with the access to computers and technology, there's so much opportunity and so much turnover there. So don't worry too much about that. I totally ignored this slide and really just went straight through orientation and registration stuff. So these are just some things to remember. Don't panic. Students email me in a panic, moms call me in a panic. There are very few registration and advising emergencies. I know it feels like it, and I'll definitely, again, most of us carry about 100, 200, upwards sometimes of 300 students on our advising load. And a lot of times all students are panicking at the same point. Don't panic too much. Take a big breath and know that we will work it out. We will deal with it, especially in this time frame before classes even get started, right? Like there's a lot of time to still work things through, and really help your student to set realistic expectations. They go to school, you go to work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They're probably going to come to this job Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. There are classes at night. There are testing times at night. There's things that are going to happen. This is their life for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Go ahead and get married to the idea that classes are not going to be around their perfect schedule, that sometimes there's classes that are only taught at one time, and it is what it is. So trust the process, trust the advisors. I must say, I've been at Clemson for 20 years. I know I look great. I don't look like a dinosaur. But it really does. It really does work. I have never truly had any major nightmares in this process. I know there's a ton of questions in the Q&A, and I think that's kind of where we are.
That is absolutely where we are. Thank you so much, Katie and Kayla and Glenn, for your work sharing some of those, all of that information as it pertains to this summer specifically. I definitely want to spend some time looking at our Q&A here. Let me do some scrolling and I'll get us started here.
Casey, one thing that I'm seeing a lot that maybe Kayla and Katie, you can answer
Sure.
is there an advantage to registering in June versus July? We mentioned a little bit about that, but if y'all could hit that.
No, all of the registration coordinators are required to hold a certain amount of seats for each registration time, day and time. So if you register in July, you will not. And when I was registering, I thought like, I pretty much gave my parents a heart attack. It's like, I have to do the first day. Like, I need all my classes. And then on the other end of it, I was like, oh, I didn't need to stress them out about getting the very first day and time. So no, there's no advantage. So I've been telling students, you pick the day and time that works best for you. And again, like Katie was saying, we'll be sure that you get all of the classes that you need. So do not worry about that. There's not a disadvantage to going in July versus in June.
Looking for some other common ones here. I believe
Over there with busy fingers trying to answer.
I know. I believe Alexa sent the link to Clemson VPN, seeing a few about that option.
We
So
also do for Zoom as well. I saw it's about Zoom downloads too.
Zoom downloads. Okay.
Can't encourage you how important that is. And I tell my students that, but I know it's going over their head and I'm telling them 50 things and it's a lot to digest. But at home, when I use the VPN client that I download, it's so much better than the web version.
I do agree with that. I do agree. I saw a similar question about airport Wi-Fi. I'm not 100% sure on that, to be honest. Advisors, have you experienced if people connect from a location like that, does that cause issues? Is that typically okay? Any thoughts there?
I would say truly, if the student is in an airport at that time, pick another day and time. There is no reason it has to be, the earliest time. If there's a better time that they're more available, less distractions, less stress, that's what I don't want that experience to be painful. And it can feel very stressful. I'm going to be honest. Like the window opens at 1 o'clock. I make my students show up 30 minutes early. I go through their schedules to make sure that there's no big red flag errors. And then I kind of like, okay, guys, 3 more minutes. And then when it starts, I'm trying to help them implement their plan. If you've built a beautiful plan, checked your plan, worked through it, we hit registration, we upload your plan and go, chances are we only get 1 or 2 errors and it's beautiful. And I love that. Easier for me, easier for the student. But reality, I get like the no errors, totally beautiful 1% of the time. And I tell those students, go buy a lottery ticket. It's your day. Don't fall in love with that plan.
This is a question that our office just generally has gotten a lot lately. For the math placement test, is it absolutely crucial that I complete it before my advising appointment? Any thoughts on the math placement test from our advisor?
It's certainly better if you've taken it at least once and we can kind of see what that initial score is, especially if you have no frame of reference for what your math level is. You've not taken a dual enrollment, no AP credit, you didn't upload SAT or ACT scores that we have access to. I have no frame of mind to know what your math capability is. So it's great if you have it. If not, we're going to kind of go with some suggestions, go take the test, come back, let me know, let's see where we are. Obviously the more information I have to guide you, the better. And the beautiful thing about math placement is you can take it multiple times. So I always tell students, take it cold the first time. Like, don't go prep for this thing. If you cram for it, I'm going to end up putting you in a heavier math than you need. Take it the first time, see where you are. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm way better than that. It's an intuitive test. So the more wrong you get, the more lower questions it's going to feed you. So then after a 24-hour period, you can work through these modules to remember the math you've forgotten since 11th grade, and then go and take the test again. Now, don't anticipate you're going to improve it by 20 points. That rarely happens. But if you need to get it up an extra 2 points to cross that threshold for placement, that's usually pretty typical.
Awesome. Go ahead.
I just wanted to address about the parents on the Facebook page, the lovely Facebook page. Okay. So don't believe everything that you see or hear. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, it says, I've seen parents on the Facebook page talking about how their students could not get the classes they needed within 4 years. are many students forced into a 5-year plan because of difficulty getting classes? That is not true. Those students were probably like me and switched their major once or twice. I switched my major twice. Therefore, I also had to stay like another summer and instead of like a year or so. So it really depends on what, and then there are some majors such as like engineering, for example, where there is a co-op. And so it's already planned. It's not like they're being forced into, they are not taking classes. They are legit working. So I think it's best to just talk to your advisor and just to find out about, that typically it is 4 years, but a lot of times some students are double majoring. Some students are getting a dual degree. Some students are adding a second minor. So there are all different reasons why a student may be staying longer than 4 years. So I encourage your student to talk to their advisor and just to see what a timeline would look like. And then at the end of the day, it is up to the student what they decide to do. We can give the advice, but it is up to the student what they decide to, whether it's worth staying. If a student if they add another minor, or another major, and it's completely different from communication or sports communication, I am real with them and I say it will take you 5 to 6 years to complete this because some of this is so strict. And some are like, I don't care. And I'm like, but do your parents care? So definitely is to keep that open communication and to see like how that will work with degree works and all of that.
Agreed. A couple thoughts here. I'm jumping around a little bit. I promise we will get through as many as we can. Had a question or a comment that said, it might be helpful as a calendar of key events for freshmen, accompanied by a list of what each student should know, how parents can support, and tips. I have great news for you. That calendar does exist. It is the Clemson Parent Family Experience calendar. Couple ways that you can access that. One, and I'll be sure to send this out when we do our kind of recap of this webinar along with the recording, can send you a Google version to add to your device. And then we do print those as well. So those come in this Thursday, I believe. And so then those will be available for any of our programming this summer and the fall. And then we're also happy to mail those directly to you. So those have a lot of the content that we've talked about. And so, shows what is coming up academically throughout each month, and then tips for you as your student supporter to help. So thank you for bringing that up, Jennifer. Jumping around here. Talked about VPN. Katie, I know you talked about transcripts a little bit, but seeing some others.
Yeah, I answered a few of those in the chat too. So a lot of times I definitely see this as a big oversight coming into orientation advising. Lots of students assume that the high school transcript is what awards them AP credit at the institution. That's not true. Those are going to come from College Board. IB comes from that website. So you have to go back in, request those scores to be sent. Dual enrollment has to come directly from the dual enrollment awarding institution. I'll see it on your high school transcript and know that we're potentially going to have that credit, but we can't actually give credit till that transcript comes through admissions and is officially on your record. If you want to check where currently what's the standing, going into IROR, looking at the student's academic transcript, that will tell you what is here at the moment. There's also, I believe, a button in the admitted student portal, especially for transfer students, that will show you all current transfer credit that's out there. I always pull those right before my meeting. And there's always more there than the student seems to think is there. I'm like, didn't you take Psych 201 in high school? I see that there. So be sure you're, talking to your advisor about that. If I don't have the credit on your transcript, I'm not going to think you have credit for it. Mm-hmm. Right. And I definitely have those situations where a student was told, hey, take Psychology 2010. It's in your curriculum freshman year. Way later down the road, oh, I had that class in high school. They send it. Now we've got a duplicate credit, right? Avoid that for sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
Some people were asking about the minimum SAT and ACT scores. I do know we have, and again, Katie and I are not the only advisors, but there is a document about like if I have to take the CMPT. So it really, I would look at your degree works. You may want to ask your advisor. They may also be in the virtual orientation modules. Like I know all of our advisors have that in there as far as like if a student needs to take it or not. So if a student does meet the SAT or ACT threshold, so to speak, then they won't be required to take the Clemson math placement test. So I suggest looking in that, looking at all the materials that were in your virtual orientation to see if that's in there. If not, you may want to reach out to your advisor and see. But in degree works, you can also click the attribute and you can see that you need this score on the placement test, or this score, this math score at SAT, or this score on the ACT. So there are different ways you can look at that.
Awesome. Thanks, Kayla.
Like,
All right.
I'm just Googling the Clemson website here and dropping links to some
my
of
God.
these answers, guys. I'm telling you, I'm really just the Clemson Google.
Mm-hmm.
How do students change their advising session? If they've already scheduled their advising appointment and they need to adjust it, they can go back into CU Navigate and make that change. If you can't figure that out, email the advisor. We're happy to help make that change. I see a question about honors. I'm going to answer that one too. So both honors and athletics, know that, you may even have additional advisors for other reasons. Your academic assigned advisor is your primary advisor. They're going to be the one that, especially going forward, when you go into advising, they'll give you a PIN number that allows you to register. That does not happen during orientation. That's a future thing. Only your academic advisor has that. Honors, athletics, anything else, those are kind of secondary advisors that are going to help complement what it is we're doing. Obviously, as an advisor, we know, you have your attributes listed if you are in a living learning community or if you are in honors. We know those things and definitely know how to advise with that. And there'll often be times, again, I'll refer and say, hey, talk to your athletic advisor about this. They're going to have an opinion about, maybe time of day or things like that. But academics is always going to be your primary. You cannot super score for the math portion of the SAT or ACT.
And then someone asked if athletes have to go through like the same advising process. And the answer is yes. So they'll meet with the advisor, their academic advisor, but all student athletes will meet or will register with NERI. So with their athletic advisor, but they do need to make an appointment with their academic advisor. They also need to, once they're done with that, they need to register for a time ticket, and then they will register with those in NERI. I don't know if y'all can answer this, but I see a lot of questions about computers. Like I think one student said that they currently don't own a computer and they were waiting until they got to Clemson to purchase one. So how would they take like the math placement test? Do they need it before orientation? All that good stuff. I don't know if y'all can answer.
What I do know, Kayla, is that there is a brand new 23-24 recommended laptops document out there. I literally just Googled it, like Katie said, Clemson recommended laptops, and it was the first link that pulled up. Highly recommend go ahead and getting that. You don't need it if you're coming to Ready, Set, Roar. If you need it to go through virtual orientation or advising or registration, go ahead and get it and get it set up. Go through our Clemson CCIT website to do that. The sooner, the better. I don't know that I would necessarily wait to get here to do that.
And Clemson CCIT, like Glenn said, is a good resource for a lot of these too. If you have questions about VPN, about students' emails, about any sort of software setup that you are hearing us say that your student will need, that homepage is probably going to be the best place for you to start for sure. All right, I know we are close to time. We are at time. So as I said in the beginning, I promise, I'm not doing anything with these questions. I'm gonna, other than saving them, and we are gonna spend the next few days looking over the ones that we maybe didn't get to answer live or did not get to answer in the chat here in this time period. I promise you that our staff will be working hard to make sure that you get the answers that you need. I do think that some of the answers to some of the questions will be in some upcoming webinars. So I saw a question about fraternity and sorority life. That is included in our student life webinar, which is in a few weeks. I'll show you the full schedule in just a second. So do want to make sure that you are aware of that and aware that we have several of those coming up that I think will include some other campus partners and resources that will be helpful to you all. Again, if you think of other things or need to reach out to us in general, cufamilies@clemson.edu is going to be your best bet to contact us and ask any questions that you may have as you're preparing. And then, as I mentioned, once we do post a recording of this webinar and all the others, I will send that in addition to the slide deck for this webinar through the Clemson Parent and Family Experience portal. So be sure that you are all set and logged in into that system. And then again, this includes the rest of our schedule. So if you have questions about student life and some of those ways that your student is hoping to get plugged in and connected to campus, that is coming up in July. Before that, we've got supporting your students' transition. So Clemson home, parking, dining, all those things coming up in that one. We will hear from Clemson Family Advisory Board, so some current Clemson family members later on in July, and then kind of have a wrap up and next steps for success, we call it, to talk through, okay, we're at August, what happens now? What do your students need to have completed? But again, I know there are a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts still here that you may still have or still be wondering about. And so we will work on our end to get those answered and to get all of those sent out to you just as soon as we can. So want to give another thank you to our panelists for being so attentive and for helping give some good info this evening. And